The thing that distinguishes PRS guitars from any other guitar are the looks and the quality. These guitars are not cheap, but they're worth every cent. My name is Mark Quigley. I'm the art director for Paul Reed Smith Guitars. Excellent guitar starts with excellent wood. The wood comes from all over the world. We have Honduran mahogany, American maple, East Indian rosewood for our fingerboards. First step is the wood is resawn into the sizes we use for manufacturing, and then it's stored until further needed, and it gets pulled into a drying process. The wood is stacked in a hot room where it's kept at a constant heat and humidity to dry the moisture out of the wood. Once the wood is dried, it goes into the glue-up area where the maple tops are glued together and they're glued onto a mahogany back. They're put into hydraulic presses until the glue is dried. Once the glue is dried, the rough shape of the guitar is bandsawed out of that piece, and they go onto a CNC machine. CNC stands for computer numerically controlled, and basically it's a very large router that's run by a computer program. It has a large disk of bits that it can change from to do different operations. So the rough cut bodies go onto the CNC machine, and the machine runs a program that carves out different aspects of the shape. After the guitars come off the CNC machine, they go over to the body sanding area where trained sanders take off the majority of the cutter marks from the CNC machine, and then they will go over them very finely by hand. The guitar has to be perfectly smooth before it gets finish put on it, because the finish just mimics what's underneath it. At that point, the body will then move to scheduling, where it waits for a neck, which kind of runs in a parallel process. The bird inlays are a well-known trademark of PRS guitars. Paul Smith's mother was very into bird watching when he was growing up, and it just seemed like a natural thing for him to do the outlines of birds. The frets are pressed into place one at a time on an arbor press, and then it goes to the neck finishing area. They will then glue in the neck, and once that is set, they will very finely go over them by hand. The first part of finishing is the stain bench. The stain bench is where the guitars really start to come alive. In the base coat spray room, we put on a polyester base coat, which really is to fill up the grain of the wood. We try and keep our finishes thin, so we do a couple of coats of the polyester. It sets overnight, and then it gets sanded. Most of it gets sanded away. After the base coat gets sanded, it moves on to the prep table. This area, the prep table, is for wiping down the guitars, getting dust and fingerprints off of it, and masking it up for the next stage of spraying. Once the color has been applied, the paper and tape gets peeled off the guitar. The tape lines get cleaned up with a razor blade, and then they will spray clear over the entire guitar. Once that top coat has been cured, they sand it with 1,000 grit sandpaper, which is very fine, but mostly they're just taking off any kind of roughness from the spraying process. After that, it goes into the buffing room. The 1,000 grit scratches that were put into the guitar are buffed out on wheels with compound, and it's brought to a high polish. At the fret level station, they will peel the tape off of the fingerboard and then scrape off any finish that's snuck in under the tape. And then they will go through and they'll sand it with varying degrees of fine sandpaper to bring it to a satiny polish so that when you play the guitar, it plays smoothly. In final assembly, we have an electronics area where we build all of our own humbucking pickups. And then the other portion of final assembly is where they actually assemble the guitars. They take the guitar from the finish hall, they put all the electronics in, they put the hardware in, they wire it up, and set them up for play. We have one amp that we use to test all of our guitars, and what they do is they play it up and down the fingerboard, make sure that the frets feel very good, and they try all the different switching positions to make sure the electronics work properly. Once the guitars have been approved, our casers will go over them, they'll look over them, make sure that no scratches have been put into them during the assembly process, wipe them down, removing all the fingerprints. We're very big on first impression when you open the case. You know, the guitar has to really take your breath away. case is closed and it gets put into a box and shipped all over the world.